cousins from Savannah and Atlanta, and they're in the book. There's one picture of Norma. She's my cousin in the red and black. She was in my mother's wedding, and there's a picture of her and Kathleen, her daughter. There's also a picture of her when she was a little toddler at our place at Rose Tube. And Norma just celebrated her 90th birthday last weekend.
For those of you who may not have tickets for tomorrow, I'm very happy to invite introduce you to another environmental writer who's in the audience, Delia Owens. Hey, Delia. I don't think that book needs any introduction.
So I do want to give you time to ask these gals some questions. Who's got one? Yes.
Other than not using straws, can you give me a couple of things to do to help with the microplastics? That's a big concern of mine.
You know what? I've started on my Mary Alice Monroe Facebook page, there's a group, and it's called Light One Candle. And on that group page, please join us. I created a page that's a forum, so you can tell us, and I'll tell you what we're doing. And it's nothing political. It's going to be strictly positive, things we can do to make a difference. And I mentioned any number of things.
Okay.
So, I mean, right off the bat, not using, just finding little ways in your house, like plastic cups and things plastic bottles. I love the metal swell bottles, or other kinds of stainless steel that keep your water cool. I've started using, in my house, more Pyrex with reusable plastic tops, but I can put them in the washing machine and reuse them. I try to avoid plastic where possible. Also, when you cook with plastic, you put that little plastic film over that creates microplastics in your food, so you don't want to do that. And come to my page. And please, when you find something good, also for everybody, no balloons. Helium balloons. It's the dearth. I hate it. Everyone says, well, everyone release your balloons, and off they go across the ocean, which are going to kill animals, for sure.
My blood pressure just went up 10 points.
Mine too. Thank you. That's a great question.
Plant a tree. You don't have to remember loved ones by releasing deadly things into the atmosphere.
About balloons, I was just going to say Clemson University, for the first time this past year, decided not to have any balloons, and that was like a 25-year tradition.
I was so proud of Clemson. Go Tigers.
Great.
It took us a while to do it, but we first got rid of the strings, and then eventually we'll be able to got rid of the balloons.
Yeah,
themselves.
that was very cool.
It takes you Clemson people a while to catch up.
I would say something nasty, but I'm too much of a gentleman.
That's great. Yes.
I'd just like to ask about barrier islands on the South Carolina coast. Seabrook just relocated to Kiowa River a few years ago, and that was like the third time it's been done. I know I don't know the science on that. Anecdotally, it seems that the dolphin strand feeding has, kind of lagged during that time. Do you think that affects some beach renourishment and relocation of rivers river outlets? I don't know what you call those. What kind of effect does that have on the wildlife we're talking about?
Well, for the big picture, there's a sand budget. Sand comes down from the Piedmont in these silty brown rivers like the Santee, Savannah, those rivers. They're bringing sand down. And that sand gets deposited on the beaches or out in the ocean, and the longshore currents move south. So the sand is slowly moving north to south. Everybody used to say, oh, our sand's going to Florida. Well, when you dam up the rivers, guess what you're doing? You're preventing a lot of that silt from coming down the rivers. So when they built the Santee Cooper Lakes, that that was back in the late 30s. That's when Cape Romaine immediately started to erode because there was not this balance. The sea level rises, it rains more or something, you get this, there's a sand balance. So people say to me, what are we going to do about erosion? And I say, until you get rid of the dams, it's not going to stop. Locally, I don't have a problem with beach renourishment because tourists like dry sandy beaches and turtles like dry sandy beaches.
We still have nests on our
Yeah,
renourished
and
beaches.
if you do it right and you do it at the right time of year, it's a win-win. When I was head of the turtle project for DNR, there was no beach renourishment in summer. End of story. They still do, they do it now. And I can't imagine why somebody would want to pay $2,000, $2,500 for a beach cottage for a week and hear bulldozers 24/7. I mean, that's just stupid.
Well, I know that where we are, they're not allowing them, they had the turtle team there until the first turtle was spotted, and then they had to stop. But yeah, it's encroaching on the time.
And when you are working at night and turtles are coming up to nest, when they nest, they throw sand all over their carapace. So here you have a sand-colored turtle walking down a sandy beach at night. And I keep telling them, one of these days, somebody's going to run over a turtle and all hell's going to break loose.
Yeah. Interestingly, about the dolphins, the strand feeding, I find in the last several years, just the last 3 or 4 years, I've noticed strand feeding where I have never seen it before, up near Beach Inlet, where they used to hang out, but they never strand fed there because the tourists were there. I think they're maybe running out of locations that are secret anymore. I mean, so many tourists now spot it and they go. But also the greed of developers like the Captain Sandspit off Kiowa is, it's amazing to me that we're going to courts for the 3rd time.
Fourth time.
4th time?
At least
And
Five.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
They're like, they think they're gonna wear us down. They ain't.
50 mansions out on a sand spit
That won't be insured.
that comes and goes.
It's just
ridiculous. I think one thing, Mary, the places that they strand feed, they're going to change as the creeks change. And it could be that oysters have settled there and they can't strand feed where they're oysters. And so they might move around and find a better, it's got to have a certain slope and a certain depth off that slope.
That makes sense because we've had so much accretion of sand, the whole area has changed. So that makes sense.
We got a last question? Yeah, Joe.
We live in Bernardino Beach, Florida. We have a lot of strand feeding. Our dolphins do a lot of that. But what I wanted to ask both of you was, when I was a reporter in Florida in the mid-80s, there was a massive East Coast dolphin die-off that started somewhere up in
New Jersey.
Yes, New Jersey, and dozens of dolphins were dying. I covered this for, I guess, a year. Did you know Dr. Gerasi from the University of...
Joe Gerasi?
Joe Gerasi from Guelph.
I was in love with him.
He was amazing. He was right on the cusp of putting that down company that dumped it back.
Yeah, those dolphins started stranding in New Jersey in the fall, and they came down, and you could see it as a wave.
Yep.
And it ended up in North Florida, and he
Yep.
was put in charge of this task force to figure out what was wrong with them. And he came to Charleston to necropsy 2 bottlenose dolphin we had frozen in hell for him. And he believed it was a brevetoxin, because he did find brevetoxin in some of the livers. And it makes sense because if they fed on fish that had brevetoxin, then they became ill all the way down the coast as they were migrating south. And they died from different things, pneumonia, infections, whatever. And none of the local dolphins died. these were all migratory dolphins.
That's
So
what
that
was
meant
so
it wasn't something they were passing on, it wasn't infectious. And I think,
Local, the resident, so
They
there
said
you
it was
go.
like a
The
third of
resident
the
dolphins,
migratory
as
dolphins.
opposed to the migratory.
yeah,
ones.
there's migratory and resident dolphins, so none of the resident dolphins got sick. So that made perfect sense to me. And then years later, when they had more technology, another researcher said it was it's the same disease that is kin to distemper.
Oh.
And to me, that doesn't make sense because that's, I mean, he
They
may,
were saying it was an infectious disease, that's what
yeah,
I
they were
remember.
saying.
And I remember that that's because of the lack of intermingling a lot with resident dolphins, that's why it wasn't going there.
Now,
But
they
if
might
it's-
have had antibodies for this disease because they may have been exposed to it in the past, but I don't think that, I think Joe's explanation makes more sense to me.
But then there again, they're siblings in the sea, our mammals, right? What happens to them happens to us. We are living basically in the same soup. So I think that's what's really interesting.
Yes, yes. All right, kids, so get out there and light your candles. Do like Clemson does, go Tigers. Spread the word.
And then tell the title of your book.
Oh, Turning the Tide.
Turning the Tides. Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Really, it's if you love turtles or you love the history of this area, that's the book to read. There's a ton of my books over there, so don't worry about that.
The first title, it changed titles 4 times, but the first title was Salt Marshes and Sea Turtles.
Not very catchy.
No.
What a great book. And I really enjoyed. I wrote the foreword to it, so I was very proud to do that. Just like you, she edits my work, I write forwards for her. We're a great team.
The symbiotic.
And thank you for wonderful, wonderful questions.
Always fun. Thanks for coming. See you out there for the book signing.